So, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Will It Be a Classic, the show where we talk about movies from the last couple of years and discuss whether or not they will be considered classics in the next couple of years. This episode is going to be a little bit different because the movie that we're talking about today is already considered a classic. Um, so I guess it's more of like, should it be a classic? Also changing things up a little bit in that I got a guest on for this episode because the movie that we're talking about today is Donnie Darko, and for anyone that knows me, it is my favorite movie of all time. So I needed someone on this episode who isn't gonna like dick ride this movie as hard as I will. So, Cory, thanks for coming on from the Talk&Schlock Connection, another segment on this YouTube channel. How you doing? What's going on?
It's good. It's good to be watching a movie, or good to be talking about a movie that I don't like. Ironically, So that's just talking just talking about awful movies with Chris. That's this is actually kind of a refresher, to be quite honest.
Um, so this movie came out in October 2001. Had a budget of like $6 million. Its domestic box office was 2 million, 2.4. Its worldwide was 2.9. So this movie did not make its money back, but in the years since, with home release, like home video and everything, this movie has garnered this insane cult classic status.
Yeah.
What?
Well, no, even like a year or two after it came out, I remember because the girl I was dating at the time who ended up just stealing the fucking DVD from me. Well, she didn't steal it. I lent it to her. She never gave it back.
Yeah.
But no, like even at that time, at its era, like it had its following. Like I can tell you, like I met way like a ton of kids, like especially in like the you know 11th and 12th grade or whatever when I was a senior in high school. Like people knew about this movie. Like
Mhm.
they would quote it and shit. I mean, it's definitely gained more of a reputation now, but even back then, like people knew about it. Like it was still considered kind of like a cool movie.
Yeah. I mean,
Just
well,
by the fact that, oh, sorry. I just meant like despite the fact that, yeah, it's a confusing movie.
mhm.
Yeah.
um, how old were you when this movie came out?
It was 2002. So, or like I'll give you a description. We used to have these things called video stores we had to go to watch movie or watch new movies. uh they had the DVD of this, and I had seen like on god, there used to be like this fucking trailer website that would like let you stream like random trailers with whatever the fuck they were using back then in
Right.
2002 2003. um I saw the trailer for it. I mean, it looked confusing, but it kind of, the aesthetic of it kind of made it look like a horror movie. So I
Mhm.
was very interested, like, because I mean, I've loved horror movies my whole life, but the like aesthetic of it got me interested, and it appeared in my in the video stores used to be set up, especially when DVD started taking over VHS. Like this was
Yeah.
to the 2002, so they would have like a bunch of VHSs of like the big releases and DVDs. But this movie, they just had like all the DVDs, so I just picked it up because it looked interesting from what I've seen of it.
Right.
Um, Again, like it's so weird because I remember sitting down and watching it, and I didn't get it the first time, but it was like almost like the Big Lebowski. Like even if you don't like it, like the journey of it was like so fucking like, because it was like almost like a John Hughes esque teenage story if you mix it up with like an insane sci-fi
Oh yeah, for sure. It is
multi-universe
a
plot. Like
John Hughes
it's,
sci-fi movie, like
yeah.
through and through.
I
Um,
promise you, if dude, if you have no context of this, you're not gonna get it the first time, but you will enjoy the experience, because I absolutely fucking loved the experience of watching this the first time. It was good.
Oh yeah,
It's like when you watch like a good movie, like for the first time, even if you didn't completely get it.
yeah.
Like, and that's why I was comparing it to like the Big Lebowski. Like, it's like, damn, dude, this is just good. You know?
Um, so 2001. So this movie came out when I would have been, I think, 7. Um,
Oh,
and
considerably older than you, bro.
um, and it's it was a movie that like when I was like I was just at home one day and I was just kind of like going through like cable channels or whatever, and I saw Frank standing in the golf course like early on in the
Yeah,
movie when Donnie,
it's
when Frank essentially saves Donnie's life.
that's like, I get that it's not a horror movie, but that's such like a horrific image when you see, regardless of how well-meaning future Frank is or alternate timeline Frank is.
Hmm.
Uh, when you first see him, dude, that is like, it's like horror movie esque. Like, holy shit, this guy's like, that could be Frank could be a slasher villain in any like, you know, I'm sure there's other timelines in this universe. Frank is just a fucking slasher villain because that's what he fucking looks like.
Oh
You know,
yeah, I mean
regardless of how good his intentions are, it's
it's well, it was so interesting because watching it at like 6 years old, 7 years old, whatever. I didn't
that's
under
a young age to see this,
Yeah, I didn't understand any of it. I just thought it was cool. I remember
dude.
I liked the music and I liked the aesthetic, and then
It's good.
um
I mean, even if you don't know what's going on, there's like some great scenes in there.
yeah, and then it
Like,
wasn't
yeah,
until probably high school that I started like watching this movie like religiously, just like over and over, because it turned into a movie that the more you watched it, the more you understood it, and the more you were kind of able to sort of like get a grasp on what the director and the writer and director are saying with time travel and all this stuff. And it's really funny because whenever I talk to people about it and try to like, you know, sort of like figure out what like the movie is about, and they don't really understand, I always say, if honestly the easiest way to look at it is that by the end of the movie, the whole movie didn't really happen. Um, and so it's a little bit easier to just kind of go along for the journey then of like this trippy sort of experience when at the end of the movie, because the timelines get shifted and everything and Donnie goes back, um, essentially the entire movie that you just saw had never happened,
it
which I
was
think is really cool. A lot of people don't like those kind of endings, but
it was better. I mean, you have to like actually like look into it and make and obviously watch the director's cut.
mhm.
Um, like just to get a grasp of what's actually happening behind the scenes here.
Oh yeah.
What like reality he's actually in.
The
Um,
the director's cut of this movie is wildly different. Like it adds a lot more context. Even some of the songs are different. Like in the theatrical cut, it's New Moon is playing, and then in the director's cut, it's I think it's like a Tears for Fears song, but it's way different.
yeah. I mean, if you're viewing this for the first time, I would still say watch the original like theatrical cut. But if you're into this movie, if you watch that and if you're like I was or kind of, it's actually like a lot of people are about this movie. It's like if you watched it the first time and we're like, damn, there's like a lot of like great story there. I just kind of wish I knew more of like what the fuck is going on, especially with like,
Yeah.
because it's a baffling movie the first time you watch it, but there's so much good aspects of it that you don't really give a shit when you watch it. It's just damn. And dude, that acting in this movie is like phenomenal. Like everything is perfect. Uh, Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously, and it's insane that like you see Jake Gyllenhaal here, and this is like the first thing because I never saw. He was only in one movie before this. It was
October Sky.
October Sky.
That's a good
Yeah,
movie.
dude, we watched it in school, and I thought it
Yeah,
was
so
cool.
did I.
And like
I
that's
should
part of the
in
dude.
school.
I'm not gonna lie, it's part of the reason. It's part of the reason I fucking rented it. I mean, like,
It's a
because
good
when you
movie.
see like that, when you're at the video store and you see like the fucking like display, because like it had like that cool image of Frank and it said 4 stars, like from some random fucking critic or
Yeah.
whatever. And dude, I rented it and I really liked it. I just didn't get it, but it
Yeah.
was such a fucking fun experience. It's like, fuck, this is just, because you get the scenes that are happening, like when he tells off his health teacher coach. Is that what she is technically? Like
It's their gym
I
coach, or it's like their gym
the,
teacher.
so okay, like gym teacher slash like health. I
Health
mean, because
teacher.
I know it was in the '80s before we had like health class and shit, but
Yeah, so it's
that
like
was her
gym
job.
slash health teacher, I guess.
But she gets very villainized because she's panders into all the bullshit that Patrick Swayze, who's fucking amazing in this movie, by the way, regardless of when dude, he is so fucking like, dude, I applaud that man, like,
Oh yeah.
because if you grew up in like the '80s and '90s, like he was like supposed to be like the badass or like the heartthrob or some shit, and he's playing like a slimy pedophile in this
Oh yeah,
movie.
he's.
Again,
I mean,
like,
it's one cool thing about this movie is like yeah, there's like the subversion of expectations with a lot of these actors where like 2001, so like Drew Barrymore at this point was like about to be in Charlie's Angels. Like her career was
yeah,
about to take a really weird turn. Jake Gyllenhaal, obviously, Maggie Gyllenhaal, um, they were both about to have exploding careers, and so it's really um, interesting when you look at the characters and sort of what they do. But another thing is how funny this movie is. Like
yeah,
it's
holy shit,
hilarious.
dude, the dialogue between Gyllenhaal and his sister in the very beginning, holy fucking dude, like
Perfect.
I don't care. I just remember like laughing my ass off the first off because it's such like a fucking sibling, like
Oh yeah.
fucking like fuck you, no fuck you, like that kind of.
Yeah, just like when he calls her a fuck ass and she's like you can go suck a fuck, and then when it just cuts to Jake Gyllenhaal being like I'm all ears, like it's perfect. It's played perfectly. Um
No, how does one suck a fuck? I'm all ears.
yeah,
It's like so
it's
like
perfect.
you can just see like genuine siblings having that rivalry, and that's like another aspect of this movie. I think we're talking about why it's technically a cult classic, but trust me, dude, people either love or I mean, not even hate, but just are like, yeah, this movie's pretty good.
Well, this
Like
movie
at the worst stuff. Oh no, sorry.
the movie I think gets a really interesting rep in that yeah, there is kind of this camp of people that love this movie and think it's fantastic, but there is sort of the camp of people that think the movie is super pretentious and just like dumb, and they think like Donnie Darko fans never shut the fuck up about Donnie Darko, which I can attest that is 100%
That's
true.
every movie
I
though.
would
But
talk about this.
you know what I mean? Like I don't think this movie gets pretentious, but I don't know. Like but it goes like back to that discussion, like is a movie just kind of confusing or is it pretentious? I don't know what to tell you, but dude, like I watched it. It's really well made. It's fucking brilliantly acted and a lot of like holy shit scenes. Like everything, dude, I really think like every character in this movie is fucking brilliantly portrayed.
Oh yeah.
That's why a lot of people fucking like it. Like Patrick Swayze's amazing, like as the like clearly full of shit guy that eventually gets
His kind of come up and
fuck yeah, he's a fucking but and again, like same for that's like fucking brave of like Patrick Swayze to like this guy that was like an icon in the '80s to play a sleazy piece of shit in the
oh yeah.
movie that not a lot of people are gonna see. Well, until at the time, not a lot of people were gonna see. But no, like Jake Gyllenhaal, dude, like you would never guess like Donnie Darko, like as he portrays him, is gonna be like a fucking action movie star or a fucking like Oscar contender and shit. Like you would like you maybe would like from his performance. Like I'm not saying that like he's fucking great in this movie, but you never see him as like a fucking like action star and shit. Like
Oh
that's fucking nuts that he like,
yeah.
that's range, dude.
Well, I
That's,
mean, the
some people shit on that, but I think it's like something actors need nowadays. Is.
well, I want to say it was. I think it was this same year. I think it was 2001 or something, or maybe it was 2002 when Bubble Boy came out. So Gyllenhaal filmed Donnie Darko and Bubble Boy like basically at the same time, which
Am
two
I, dude?
so different.
Am I a bad person for me and my friend laughing our asses off at that fucking movie?
Dude, Bubble Boy is amazing. I love that movie.
Dude, me and my friend for like we watched it one day and like for 2 weeks afterwards we just kept going like ba 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 like that fucking random like fucking music they would play in stupid scenes. It's such a dumb movie, and like Jake Gyllenhaal, like God bless him, he fucking like he's not like regretful of it, but it's like, dude, that movie fucking if it got made today, holy shit.
Yeah, oh yeah, that movie's not politically correct in the slightest.
Yeah.
Um, but so what I mean, so I guess kind of looking back on it, it's a movie that I think everyone has at least heard about. If they haven't seen it, they've at least heard about it. It's so infamous with Jake Gyllenhaal and being known as sort of this like really weird, somewhat like esoteric kind of movie. Um, and of course Frank, the 6 foot tall bunny rabbit. Um, but why? I guess
Well, I think
would you say
it
that it's like considered a classic? Like why do you think
well
it nowadays is like kind of has garnered this like cult classic kind of status?
well we were talking before that this is kind of like in an essence kind of like a part of it is like a John Hughes movie. Donnie himself, and it's probably like as we were talking like Jake Gyllenhaal being the shit in this movie. Uh, is relatable. Like he's
Mhm.
probably too smart for his own good because he sees a lot of the bullshit and that a lot of kids around that age, around like 17, 18, that they see with like adults. Like he gets that like a lot of these people are full of shit, and then a lot of the scenes like and the funniest scenes of the movie, like some great comedic scenes, especially with him calling out Patrick Swayze in the like whole trying to think of the scene, like
Well, I'm
he's
probably gonna
given
put
like a
this scene like right
presentation.
here or something. I'm probably gonna cut the scene in right here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Um, how much are they paying you to be here?
Excuse
You
me.
know, it takes a little while to find that out, right, Jim? And you. Yeah, you. You think you're some jerk shoving your head down the toilet. Well, you know what? Maybe you should lift some weights or take a karate lesson, and the next time he tries to do it, you kick him in the balls. Right, actually, I'm pretty troubled and I'm pretty confused, but I'm afraid, really afraid. Really afraid, but I think you're fucking Antichrist.
Oh no, no,
In the
sorry.
video, just so everyone
But
knows what I'm
no,
talking
like
about, because it is a great scene
he
where he
call,
calls
he
Patrick
called he
Christ.
essentially calls out Patrick Swayze, and again, like we were talking about, you don't know yet that Patrick Swayze is a pedophile. Uh, but the way Donnie rips into him is like fucking legend. It's one of like the best like scenes in any movies I've ever seen, where he's just like, "Hey, how much are they paying you to be here?" Like,
Yeah,
that's how he starts, and then he goes on like he gives everybody he's given or Patrick Swayze has given advice to. Sorry, he gives everybody advice like that Patrick Swayze has just kind of given kind of like half-assed like fucking be passive advice, and like he tells like the one kid who's getting bullied, he's like, "Hey, it's like, are you tired of like some asshole like shoving your head down a toilet? How about next time you just punch him in the fucking balls?" Like, or
yeah.
he says something like to
Uh,
that like extent, like, and
well,
it's fucking like awesome. Like,
well, I think there's something also to that scene's credit is something that we've kind of touched on a couple of times is the music. When that scene is going on, there's like almost like a weird synthesizer kind of beat that's like rising. So there's like tension brewing as Donnie's basically telling off Patrick Swayze's character. And so it's, it finally kind of comes to that head where he's like, I am scared and I am worried, but I think you're the fucking Antichrist. And the music
Yeah.
cuts out and everyone starts cheering for him. And it's like, I think the way the music is so vital to this movie. Like, the music has,
Yeah.
like, this is
Well,
one of the best, probably my top 5 soundtracks just for a movie ever. The
oh
way
right.
it's utilized, the way the score is used, it's amazing.
Yeah, like dude, like you're talking about the music, like yeah, the score, like especially in the scenes with like Frank, like towards the end, like yeah, like those are, or as the story progresses, because when you first see Frank, it's almost like no like music at all, which makes it it's almost like with fuck is the movie called? It Follows. Like
Mhm.
that has like creepy kind of like just some blank figure that looks kind of fucked up.
Right.
Uh, again though, dude, like it's an incredibly this doesn't seem like any like aspect of this movie wasn't looked into. Like the director did such a good fucking job of this, like making sure every scene counted.
Oh, it's
And
very like what's the word? Methodical.
yeah, like uh I don't know, it's again, that's kind of why I like the I mean the director's cut. If you're a fan of this movie, absolutely go fucking watch the shit out of it. 'Cause it does explain a lot, and obviously you can go online now and like figure out like the plot to this, or what is actually happening behind the scenes of what you're actually seeing in this movie.
Oh yeah, there's so many
uh,
explanation videos and everything of this
but
movie.
no, like I really like the theatrical cut, because it almost, I was saying before, like the teenage aspects of this, if you're watching this as a teenager, a lot of people can relate to Donnie. Like
Mhm.
there's he's, way intelligent beyond his years and shit. Like there's so many kids like
Oh yeah.
that. But yeah, dude, just looking into this shit, like I don't know, like it's probably like one. Again, we were talking about like our top fives and shit. Uh, this movie, I gotta say, probably in my top 10, because I saw this movie like at least a dozen times back when I was like, still in high school.
Well, I think that's you saying high school. I think that's what is another factor that leads to this movie being a classic is that this really feels like a seminal kind of movie for a teenager to watch, especially a teenager that's like not an outcast, but maybe like a teenager that's a little confused, is a little bit sort of like, sort of where
He's
kind of do I fit
That's
inside the mold
probably
of everything. I think this movie is very much helpful in helping you kind of grow and sort of come to not terms, but sort of helping you sort of figure out like resolutions as to like where you go. I think this is a really good just movie for
but
sort of that lost, confused teenager.
it's oh dude, trust me, like if you're lost in your fucking or around 15, 16, like all of us fucking are. Like I don't give a shit. Like all the hormones going on in your brain, like fucking 15, 16, yeah, you're fucked up, dude. You don't know who the fuck, you don't know fucking left from right. Like if you see this movie, I swear to God, you will have like, it's almost like something a doctor prescribed, because it's
Yeah.
like, because I do remember that. Like regardless of whether I understood the plot or not, I was like, I 1,000 and fucking 10% understand what this kid is going through. And that's a very like, regardless of whether you like this movie or not, that's something this movie does very well. He gets like bullied by a couple like random, like genuine sociopaths. One of them, Seth Rogen, in his first fucking role ever. The other is the lead singer of Phantom Planet. Uh, California, here we come. But again, like the
Well, the
reason
writing,
this movie is so it's such a relatable movie. And
yeah,
same thing with the teachers too, because the teachers are putting up with bullshit. Drew Barrymore and
the science teacher.
uh fucking what's his name? Noah Wiley. Noah
Yeah.
Wiley.
Um, there. I mean, the like as you said, the acting is amazing. The writing is so fantastic. The kids, the teenagers, whatever, are written in a way that's so believable. Like Donnie is very intelligent, but he's not this like crazy pseudo intellectual that's like kind of floating above everyone else. He's very much like grounded, because like even the scene where he floods the school and school's canceled, and the next day he's walking and he sees Gretchen with she's like being harassed by like Seth Rogen and the other guy, and she's like, you know like or Gretchen says, "Don't look so freaked," and Donnie's just like, "I'm not. Just check your bag. They like to steal shit." It's just really simple things like that, just little interactions between Donnie and these other characters. Like even when
Well,
when
it
it's the
seems
morning
genuine.
after. What?
That is something you would say, like if you saw somebody who's like getting fucking like,
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of it's an awkward scene. Like nowadays, somebody would be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like it's fucking 2022. Like you know what I mean?
Well, it's like
Uh,
it's
like
also
when
like
she's
that
getting
one
kind of harassed.
scene. What?
But no, sorry. But I'm just saying, like somebody nowadays would be like, "What the like, yo, what are you seriously harassing somebody like or in the middle of the fucking street and being like, oh, I like your boobs and oh, like you know what I mean?"
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. When Donnie comes up to me, he's like, "Yo, check your bag. They like to steal shit." That's such like a genuine line. Like,
Oh yeah.
it seems like something somebody would say. Like, you know,
Yeah. And then there's like the other
yeah,
scene where it's after the airplane engine falls in on their house, and the next morning when they're waiting for the bus and Donnie's friend offers him a cigarette, and his friend's just like, "That's good shit, right?" And Donnie's just like, "It's a fucking cigarette." It's just the delivery and kind of the way it's played off. And then even the way before he lights the
when
cigarette, he turns to his sister and he's like, "What do you do if you tell mom?" And she's just like, "You put Barbie in the toilet or whatever, or garbage disposal."
Ariel in the toilet.
Yeah. Um
What? Who the fuck is he talking about? Her copy of fucking the Little Mermaid, or is he talking about an actual fish named Ariel?
I think he's
That's
talking
something
about a
I've always been.
doll, like a toy.
Her doll,
Yeah, I
Ariel.
think it's like he's
Oh,
talking
okay.
about like a toy doll or something.
All right. Okay. Well, like that's like one of the fucking like little aspects of this fucking movie that I've seen like God over a dozen times. Like, but that's kind of the beauty of it. Like, even watching it again for the first time. Again, I watched the theatrical cut, but I watched it again. It was like shit. There was like a few things that I didn't notice like the first like
Oh
over a
yeah.
dozen times I watched it the first time.
It's a movie that rewards repeat viewings over and over again because
Yeah.
it's a movie that is so um it has its own story to tell, that there's so many different moving parts that every time you kind of go and approach it, you yourself are approaching it differently. So you're going to kind of pick up on different things and remember certain things differently, or certain things are going to like hit you differently. Like last night when I was rewatching it, I rewatched the director's cut, and I love that the first time we see Donnie's therapist, it's when Donnie says, "I made a new friend," and she's like, "Real or imaginary?" And Donnie says, "Imaginary." Um, that's also only in the director's cut, which is really interesting that that scene is only a director's cut scene. Um, because I think that's such a great way to one introduce the dynamic between Donnie, because that's really one of the biggest things that I think works to this movie's benefit is just the chemistry and everyone that's bouncing off of Donnie. That Donnie is very much like the centerpiece of this world. That at the end of the movie, when he dies, you kind of see how much it will really sort of affect everything that was moving around him with Sharita and the teachers and his therapist and Patrick Swayze's character and everything like this.
Well, yeah, I mean, that scene at the end, even in the director's cut, you kind of get the idea that his death has impacted everybody in some way,
Mm-hmm.
even if they don't have no idea why. Because when you think about it, like everybody he comes into contact with, obviously Jenna Elfman, Jesus Christ, Jenna Malone. I don't know why the fuck I just called her fucking Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Jenna Elfman. Uh, Again, like it's a nice like little like teen because that's like one of the things that I really liked when I first watched it. Like, love any movie that has like a genuine thinking, like
Mm-hmm.
romance or whatever. But that was good. But when he got or when she gets fucking killed by this universe's version of Frank, played fucking brilliantly by what's his face from SLC Punk, James Duvall.
Yeah.
Yeah. What were you thinking? Like he, he has the same voice. He has the same voice as Tim Shaw that we used to work with. Uh, what do you call it though? Like everything that happens there, like towards the end, uh, she gets killed. He kills James Duvall, aka this universe's Frank, which is again like this character that almost seemed like a horror. You would almost because that's kind of what like I consider Frank on the horror lexicon is like almost like his own like kind of he's not evil intention or whatever, but he looks like menacing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I love the look of Frank, dude. I in the 11th grade, I or whatever they're gonna tear down this wall in the middle of the semester, and everybody drew one kid drew like a System of a Down cover thing, and you would just like paint something on the wall. I did Frank, and this one girl fucking came up to me and was like so cool. It's like you're the because she saw me working. I never actually finished it. Like I finished the outline, I just didn't finish the paint. She came up to me and she was like, "Oh my god, you're the one that fucking made this. I love that fucking movie." And when you think about that, dude, that that was like 2002,
Mm.
2003, like around that era.
Yeah.
People loved that movie back then. And yeah, that's why like movies like this are considered kind of a classic.
Oh yeah. Um. So I mean, I think it's as we kind of talked about where in the early 2000s you have the John Hughes feeling of this sort of like offbeat teen movie, but you also have horror elements with Frank. I mean, even with one of the most famous scenes where they're in the movie theater, they're watching The Evil Dead.
Yeah.
Um, you have the soundtrack with like Tears for Fears, the that Notorious song that plays is so that whole entire scene, the Notorious scene is amazing. The end with Mad World by Gary Jules, like amazing. Um,
Soundtrack in this movie is fucking I mean, it's very euphoric for a movie this, like intense in
yeah,
certain scenes. Like,
but it works.
uh, it's so. I mean, it's definitely one of the best.
It's
In
top
my
tier.
opinion, like one of the best like soundtracks like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
of any
It's
movie,
top tier.
like, hands down.
Um, and so I think when you kind of take all these different ingredients that apart you wouldn't think would work very well. like, you know, you take Tears for Fears and put it in a John Hughes horror movie, you don't think it doesn't sound like it would work, but it does, and it does perfectly. Um, and so I do think that for all those reasons, I think Donnie Darko uh, should should be a classic, and I think it'll remain a classic for years to come. And I do think that as more and more uh, people find this movie, and I do think sort of as our kind of world and generation sort of changes more and more, I think this movie is going to grow to become a lot more important and influential. Any last
Yeah.
thoughts on Donnie Darko?
Uh, it's just like you said, dude. It's gonna go down as like definitely a cult classic, but there's no aspect of this movie, as confusing as it is, that I think is bad. It's such a brilliantly made movie. It's such a like really brilliantly acted movie too.
Mm.
Uh, but again, like I don't think it's ever like gonna like slip under like the radar or whatever. I mean, every movie like this eventually does become like one of those cult movies they have to go out of your way to find. With this movie though, like especially like the acting talent, like Jake Gyllenhaal, like that performance, like got him everything that came afterwards.
Oh yeah,
You know,
oh yeah.
like that was like you said, like October Sky, like as good of a movie as that was. Like I'm not sure anyone actually saw it. Like people did remember him from this, and then he like fucking skyrocketed.
Hmm.
So,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Um, well, so that is this episode of Will It Be a Classic? Thanks everyone and anyone for watching. Cory, do you want to plug the other show that you have with Chris on this YouTube channel?
oh, the Talk and Schlock Connection with Chris and Cory.
Yeah.
We talk about we talk about considerably less good movies than this, but there's it's still fun to talk about though. I like those as shitty as some of the movies are. The next one we're gonna do is Psycho Cop 2, which I've never seen Psycho Cop 1, but I still very much enjoyed this movie.
Oh
As
god.
fucking insane as it was. Directed from the director of Detroit Rock City. Well, it's almost a county, you know.
Well, yeah,
I
I
do
mean,
for trivia.
I watch your episodes while I'm editing them and putting them up, and I mean, they're fun. I mean, these movies that you guys are talking about sound awful, and that's kind of the point. But
Dude,
they sound like really fun.
they are fun. Again, like Neon Maniacs, Intruder. This last one we watched is fucking. Dude, I'm straight up gonna send you like an image of the guy that me and Chris are probably gonna talk about a lot in this movie. Dude, he looks
All right.
good
So
shit.
yeah, thanks again, everyone and anyone watching. Make sure you check out the Talk and Schlock Connection. Also check out the Film Section podcast with me and Chris, where season 2 is gonna be starting up soon. Um, you know, the world is crazy and we're all busy right now. So thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.